Well, greetings everyone. We're a little late with this presentation. We had a little technical difficulty. The iPad decided to film green, and I look like a lot of things, but not very good green. So we're going to try this again. Now, first thing you ever learn about me is that I don't have any trouble talking in front of anybody. I've been teaching for 40 years, and I've got various degrees in theater. But technology, I don't have any problem with that either. I build computers, keep all the peripherals in the company, keep everything going. But when one little thing doesn't do what it's supposed to do, I go flipping off the deep end. And everybody says, oh, Google it. And you Google it and it says, do this. And this is no longer there. They've changed the software or moved the button or something. So that's my only problem with doing the live stuff. The filming and editing and whatnot I can do. But anyway, I thought because we are creatives and because I do something a little bit different than a lot of you, as a matter of fact, I do something different than a lot of artists, I thought you might enjoy seeing what it is I do. I know we took a real quick tour through the studio, but it didn't really focus on the work. Now that my husband is no longer a commercial screen printer, yay, I have about 40 years of graphic designs. That's what's going to Etsy, so that's one of my channels of artwork or income. We're going to send that out. Now that we don't have to do that, I'm left with 4 parts of my own company. I am a photographic and fine art restoration artist. I am a portrait artist, having started to paint portraits commercially when I was 15, a long time ago. And I also restore photographs. Well, I said that, didn't I? Okay, well, let's take a look. I do things also differently than other people. I'm trained in historic restoration. So I'm one of the few people that will still work on an original photograph. And not everything is put into a computer and buttons are pushed. I still work in the darkroom. The piece here you can see the original tintype that the customer brought me. I'm kind of holding it. And I have an award from the Fuji Corporation because I invented this process to take the original photograph and the original tintype, photograph it in a liquid solution that allows me to get this image on the negative. Once I've got the negative printed, I can restore it. And because we do our own printing, this is actually a metal photograph. So we call them a simulated tintype. Just an added little product that we can do for other people. Now, in addition to doing traditional portraits in oils most of the time, I do work in watercolors occasionally. I work digitally. When photographers went to digital photography, they said, I don't need you anymore. I can Photoshop my own artwork and photographs and whatnot. The only problem is that most of the photographers can't draw. So what I do is they take the photographs. Now this is only a snapshot. This was a commercial piece. This wasn't from a photographer. But let's say the photographer takes a portrait of children in costume and the assignment is to make sure that the children are flying on dragons. All right, they can't draw the dragons, they can't make it look realistic. So they send me the files and I work on the actual file and do all of this. This is all hand drawing from scratch. So this is one way that I keep my wholesale clients. I can keep producing things for photographers and the general public, but that it's creative. Now, the paintings, I stumbled on something a couple of years ago, and I hope there's not too much glare. We'll try to tip it down here. Several years ago, I started doing spirit paintings. And these are transparent portraits of lost loved ones. And people either went absolutely crazy over them or they absolutely hate them. There's an expression here in the mountains, don't want no haint in my house. Haint is a very old-timey word for a ghost. Now this one is actually me. In my long hair days, I was raised on the Canadian side of Lake Erie. I am holding my great-grandmother's teacup, and these are my great-grandparents. He was the last sea captain on the Great Lakes, and this is actually his ship in 1883. So this is storytelling portraits, which is fabulous stuff when I finally get to the live videos and the live whatevers, because people don't want to read the stories, but they bloody well want to know about them. They love the stories. And I made this for myself, but surprisingly enough, I sell a lot of reproductions to people that either love the lakes, know me, or think it's just a cool portrait. The commissions come in all different shapes, sizes, flavors, colors, all different reasons. In this case, it is a historic, let me see if I can tip that down there a little bit better. It is a historic person carrying that book, and there's the book on the bottom. We have live animals, we have deceased animals, we have storytelling of ancestors long gone. Some of them are just fun. Pas de deux is called a dance for two. It is when a ballerina, usually a man and a woman, are dancing at the same time, but dancing for two, which one? Our dream to become a ballerina. Now this was a fantasy piece. This was not somebody that had passed away that was a ballerina. We never know what comes in or what I'm doing. I sell everything in reproduction. Animals and their children, of course. If you think people spend money on live animals, you should see what they spend on animals that have passed away. I actually have a charity, a foundation charity for one of the AKC bulldogs, and it's a foundation that once we sell merchandise and whatnot based on this one particular bulldog, I donate money to the rescue foundation that I formed. Now some of them are just fun. Lions, tigers, bears, oh my! The little boys, there's a little frog, little snails. Anybody familiar with the, we always say it's British, which I am, I'm from Canada. What is it? Frogs and snails and puppy dog tails. That's what little boys are made of. And there's a companion piece being worked on. There's 3 little girls under a blanket with flashlights, and there's all the fairy tale stuff going on above it, and I haven't finished it yet. I haven't done the layup. Also fantasy. Live person actually happens to be my daughter. When she was 4, she's now 38. This is where she and I both grew up, and all of the sea animals and all of the things that come out of the sea, we're only limited to what is the budget and what is possible in fantasy. Now, some of the pieces include objects and things that are very important. This depicts here in the Smoky Mountains. It's the only, here and in Japan, China, are the only 2 places in the world where the fireflies are synchronized. They all blink at the same time. Blink, 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 blink. And it's a huge event. It's unfortunately canceled this year because there are so many people in the national park. They are going to block it off, and they're not going to let anybody into this area. But we have a depiction of someone that wanted to remember their time in the Smokies. They might include objects and ghosts, spirits, many spirits. There's one here in the picture frame from this historic home that's not very far from here. I leaned over the dining room table to get under the chandelier to photograph the chandelier. Actually caught myself in the mirror, and there is a ghost in this house. That's one of their things where they say, hey, come to this great house. It's got ghosts, and it's got magnificent hand-blown glass chandeliers. The pieces have started to get very moved toward the world of fantasy. And I was actually picked up and noticed by some very top people in the fantasy world, in the sci-fi fantasy world, and they've asked me to participate in that world. Now, a lot of our conventions are canceled this year, but there's something coming up that's really, two things actually, that are really spectacular, and I'll be able to announce that very, very shortly. We're just waiting for the official word. But when you start dealing with, you know, butterflies escaping, if you can tell, there are escaping out of the light, out of your inner light. And this piece, being very metaphysical, this is one of my top sellers in all sizes. Now remember, these are actually my show samples when I'm doing personal appearances and whatnot. These pieces all go together to make an 8-foot wall of samples, and then the originals are hanging on the sides, and all the merchandise and the prints we print on, everything from mouse pads to jewelry. This actually sells wonderfully on a pendant. I've sold it twice off my own neck. I wear it and people go, oh, where'd you get it? And I keep the cha-ching thing in my purse, so I sell it right off my piece. So the pieces are either realistic, they're very fantasy. I call them spirit paintings. They're storytelling paintings. And as I say, it's very different from some of your work, the wreaths and painting on wood and things like that. So I thought perhaps you might like to see what it is that goes on around here. HeirloomArtStudio.com and KathrynRutherford.com. Tell everybody.